Hey, everyone, it's Casey here from Wake Up with Casey, and I'm starting my sixth season here. And I'm really excited because, like I said, I'm taking it to a whole nother level. Yes, I'm going to have some guests on my show, but I'm also going to be teaching, educating, like as a life coach to help you on your journey, especially if you started to realize things and like an awakening for yourself. So, today I have a very special guest that I've been following on TikTok, and he goes by Out of the Matrix. And today Sean Logan joins me, and we're going to have some deep conversations about the Anunnaki, religion, and so much more. So please welcome Sean Logan. Sean, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, I've been following you for these a couple of years now.
Okay.
And I've been like everything that you talk about, I've discovered as well. And I've been like through my own research and studying and my spiritual experiences, if you want to click on the same things that we discovered separately, but it's been like an ongoing journey. So, and I have you on my show, so I'm so like thrilled to be able to talk to somebody else about this stuff. And when did you start going on this journey?
Well, my journey, it's actually been a multi-incarnational thing. I'm here on a very specific purpose, but in this incarnation, the journey started by strategically having me incarnate into a very heavily indoctrinated community where everyone was basically brainwashed by two different types of religions. The religion of statism, which is the religion where the government is God, and the religion of Christianity, which is a monotheistic, patriarchal type of dogma and superstition that basically became corporatized as a religion and then intertwined with the religion of statism, where the rituals that everyone was basically like forced into practicing in some cases, they all intertwined into one, where the government started putting things like "in God we trust" on the money that only they get to issue, and they would start getting everyone to like sing praise songs to the government, almost as if the government tried to act as a third party intermediary between God and the citizens. So I was raised in this. I was forced into it. In some cases, I was even ridiculed for questioning it or made to seem like like I was bad or sinful if I didn't comply. So through my whole childhood, I grew up in this, and I always knew it was fake. I would always question it. Um, I was very interested in learning spirituality type stuff, but it was often demonized. I was also like ridiculed or threatened by my parents, like, no, you can't study that, you can't learn about that, that's the devil, that's evil, that's witchcraft. So they would try to like push me, they would try to steer me in these directions and fit me into this little box. And the box that they tried to fit me in was a statist Christian, and I never resonated with it. I didn't like it at all. I always questioned it through my whole childhood. Even before I was a teenager, I was questioning it. I remember I would tell my mom, I would tell her that it was a brainwashing facility. When I was like 11 years old, that was the extent of my vocabulary. Now I call them indoctrination camps, but they sent me to basically I called it a brainwashing facility, but private school is an indoctrination camp for Christianity and statism, because they still stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, which is a statist ritual. And then they sent me to public school, which wasn't so much Christianity indoctrination, but it was very heavily indoctrinating with the religion of statism. So I've always known it was fake, and I've always like just wanted to find the answers to it. And as I progressed and got older, synchronistically and just by my intuition, I was always guided to learn about specific topics. I was always very guided, and just like had something was drawing me to learn about specific topics. And One of those topics was ancient history, Atlantis, anything to do with like the gods of ancient Greece, the Anunnaki, the Sumerian gods. I was always very, very interested in this. Anytime I saw something about it, or I found a book about it, or I found a podcast about it, I just like, there was something telling me like I had to watch all this stuff. And as I began learning more and more about ancient history and the Anunnaki and that whole storyline, well, I found all the answers for for how the community I grew up in got to be so brainwashed and indoctrinated. So now I just go on social media and I just talk about everything that I know. And what I found is there's a whole bunch of other people that also grew up in situations just like me and didn't resonate with it. And they're also now all coming together and doing their own research. And then, I found all these other researchers and even people that like translate some of these ancient writings, and they've all come together, and I can find them. I found some other researchers like in Facebook groups, and I could join a Facebook group and talk to them about it. And now everyone has came together to do research on all this stuff, and everyone's bringing different puzzle pieces together. So I'm still on this journey. I'm still learning. I don't know everything, but I do have some pretty interesting stuff about the Anunnaki and ancient history. If you're into that stuff, I think you might find it interesting.
Dude, you have no idea, because now, before we start talking about the Anunnaki, what are some of the books that you've come across to help guide you in realizing, oh, this makes more sense and we've been lied to all along? What books have inspired you to help you on your learning?
Well, one of the first books it's called The Book That Will Forever Change Our Ideas About the Bible. And this is written by an Italian translator. His name is Mauro Biglino. And he was like one of the main writers and translators for a publishing company that was basically backed and endorsed by the Vatican. But once he started talking about all the stuff that I talk about on TikTok, that publishing company actually censored him and stopped publishing his work. Now, Mauro Biglino has other books out now. He has another book out called The Gods of the Bible. He has a third book out called The Naked Bible. But that's probably one of my favorites, because he'll show you exactly how the Bible was written in another language. In his book, he'll show you like, okay, here it is in Hebrew, here it is in the King James Bible in English, and he'll show you that the English words are completely different from the Hebrew words. So he really makes it like comprehensible for the average person to see how twisted the English translations have become. And then if you also ordered the Ethiopian Bible or the Apocrypha, there's like 22 other books that were hidden from the King James Bible. There's also a guy, and most people have never even heard about this guy, but his name is George Smith, and he is an archaeologist from the 1800s. And in the year 1850, oh yeah, you got it, the Chaldean account of Genesis.
Yes.
So George Smith, he probably made one of the most profound historical discoveries that really, really disrupted the narrative. He discovered the library of an Assyrian king named Ashurbanipal. And Ashurbanipal, this guy, when he was ruling, and his empire dates back thousands of years before the invention of Christianity, before the King James Bible. And he had a library with over 30,000 tablets written in an ancient writing style called cuneiform. They found some of the most disruptive tablets to this day, some of the most significant historical ancient documents. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Atrahasis, which is the story of creation and the flood story, the Enuma Elish, the 7 tablets of creation. Yep. And the ancient Sumerian kings list, which is a genealogy record of royal bloodline dating back hundreds of thousands of years, completely disrupting the timeline that the corporate religious industrial complex is trying to get everyone to believe in, which is that God created the earth 6,000 years ago from nothing, and you're all evil, bad people because someone ate a fruit that was forbidden, and now you're all going to go to hell unless you comply to our dogmas and superstitions. So that whole timeline just got thrown out the window, especially after George Smith discovered Ashurbanipal's library in the city of Nineveh. And again, like a lot of these ancient cities, they were thought to only be mythology. But then what happened is archaeologists, they found one, and then they found another, and then they found another, and then and they just kept finding more and more and more and more over the past, few hundred years or so. And now we have, because of like the cuneiform tablets discovered in Ashurbanipal's library, and then things like the Rosetta Stone, now we can really start putting all the puzzle pieces together. So not only did Ashurbanipal's library disrupt the timeline of the corporate religious industrial complex, but it proved that the Christians and their religion, they just copied everything. The Bible's not original. They copied all of it from ancient cuneiform. Not only did they copy it from cuneiform tablets, but they also copied a lot of it from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They also copied a lot of it from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, who is also Hermes Trismegistus, known by the Greeks. It's all just copied. It's all plagiarism. The whole thing. All they did was they hijacked a bunch of ancient teachings. They whipped it all together. They edited out the stuff they didn't want people to know about. And then they tried to create this narrative and this corporate religious industrial complex based on monotheism and patriarchy, where they could try to suppress people's consciousness, make them feel guilty through their whole life just for being alive. You're a sinful person because someone ate a forbidden fruit some years ago. You're a bad person. You have to beg for forgiveness. Give us your money. Pay a tithing. Pay a penance. Give us a donation and repent. And they just try to demonize you while extracting money from you. So the whole thing is a fraud. All the religions, all the churches are corporations. The churches incorporate by filling out the 501c form that they send to the IRS to get all their tax benefits. It's all just a corporation trying to siphon money from people. And that's what, that's in a nutshell what I discovered. There's way more to it than that. I mean, we'll get into it, but in a nutshell.
There's so much more. And then I realized that because, I was brought up the Southern Baptist religion, and then it's like, just what you said, they try to indoctrinate fear and manipulation and control of telling you are already a bad person because you're a sinner coming. And I'm like, how is that so? Because whatever Adam and Eve did should not affect me. That was on them. I should not be held responsible for somebody else's bad doings. So how is that even possible?
It's not. It's impossible. It's all a lie. It's all deceit.
Like if people would just sit there like, yeah, I had nothing to do with that. Why am I already being told I'm a bad person and I'm a sinner? I was born from a womb and came into this earth innocent, pure. Yep. It's mind-boggling how people actually are stay stuck in that belief system. And I talk about how to overcome limited beliefs. The programs, the emotional, energetic traumas. Now with that, I can go all the way back to the Anunnaki. That's how far and deep I go with this, because I see history repeating itself. Now, on your journey, do you see the same thing even going back to the Anunnaki, how it, and even religion, it's like history's repeating itself. Here we go again. When are we going to wake up and realize that didn't work then? It's definitely not going to work now.
Yeah. If you look, if you really start studying this stuff, I mean, this goes back like 10,000 years back to the Atlanteans, and since the deluge, the biblical flood, it's just the same thing that's been going on for like 10,000 years. History's been repeating itself on this earth world for 10,000 years.
More.
Even more. I mean, ever since the Anunnaki or the Elohim, is sometimes what they're referred to, since they came here and started extracting resources from the earth world and started doing the genetic experiments, they've ruled this world ever since. And a lot of people don't even know it, but everything that we have in our society, from our languages to our mathematics to our architectural building methods, the systems
Agriculture.
of government, agricultural, the medicinal, the systems of government, the financial systems, all of that was passed along to us by the Anunnaki. So nothing is really like, nothing that the human Homo sapiens have was really just like invented or anything like that. It was all passed on to us by these Anunnaki. And some of it is not for our best interest. Some of these things that we have in society that people just perceive as normal, like paying taxes, having a government rule over you, having anyone rule over you, having a social security number, a federal tax ID number, a driver's license number, a passport number, a QR code, and a barcode to scan and track and monitor you. That's not normal. That's enslavement. Have you ever driven by a cattle farm? Have you seen how the farmers put a little tag in the ear of their cattle with a number on it? Well, that's your social security number, your federal tax ID number, your vehicle identification number, your passport number, your QR code, and your barcode. Humans are farmed. We're farmed on the earth world. We are livestock. When your parents signed the birth certificate, that created your citizenship. And that birth certificate is a security. It's traded on Wall Street. They're trading you like a stock. The citizens are the slaves to the British crown, the Vatican. And we've been living under their corporate construct. And people perceive it as normal. It's not. It's all a fraud. It's all deceit. All of it.
Oh, and yeah, that's like a whole nother episode to talk about.
Yeah.
But what I've recently discovered, especially like you said, George Smith, then there's Stephanie Daly. She's also an Assyriologist along with George Smith from back in those times. And then you got Eric Badonican.
Von Daniken.
I
Yeah, I remember him.
right?
Yep. Yeah, Chariots of the Gods was one of his well-known.
And then Zachariah Sitchin, the 12th planet. And then I've been, how like you're drawn to certain things that piques your, like there's just something like draws you to whatever it is that you stop yourself and look into, because there's something that I feel like our soul is trying to get our attention to help guide us in what we're supposed to be doing. Is that safe to say?
That is safe to say, in my opinion, yes.
I got the Lost Book of Inky.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I came across some even things that I've been questioning. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought, like, because you mentioned about the deluge earlier. So this is what I picked up on. I'm like, wait a minute. I was told, especially in the Bible, which is so far off the truth. But I noticed that Inky, I'm so, like, when I hear Inky, I perk up. I'm like, what's going on, Inky, kind of thing. And I think there's a spiritual connection in that aspect. But I don't know how I know. I don't know if it was a vision or something I was catching on to, but it was like I saw him. He was monitoring the constellations. He's the one that I don't know if he gets credit for, but I know that he was recording them, created the zodiac signs. And there's 13, by the way. They had a 13th month calendar system, not 12. And he was paying attention to all this. And there was something going on Earth before the deluge. There was calamities. I know how to spell it. Calamy. Yes. Oh, okay. There's already droughts. There was earthquakes starting to happen. There was hurricanes, tornadoes. Even back in those times, it was starting to act up again in that time frame before the deluge. And Inky was monitoring, and he realized, hey, there is something, because he was talking to his brother Enlil and Anu. And he was telling them, this is what I'm seeing happening. This is already happening here, but there's something in the solar system that's happening. And Nibiru at the time was getting closer to the Earth's atmosphere. It was like that kind of thing going on. And he said there was a flood coming, and they were discussing amongst themselves of, okay, we need to get ourselves ready to escape. And Enlil did not care about the human beings that were already there. And I was
Yep.
like, so they, because they talked, is this fate or is this destiny? Is this the creator of all doing this because of what we were doing? And I
Yeah,
thought
that's
that was
interesting.
fascinating, because all the time it's like, no, and the Anunnaki was involved in creating the delusion. I'm like, no, there was something else going on. And when I read that, I was like, it was like I knew this already, but I got the validation of something that I was already feeling to be truth. And here it is right then and there. And I was like, that makes so much more sense.
There's a really interesting book that goes really, really in depth on exactly what you were just talking about. It's called The Apocalypse of Yajnavalkya, and
Ye-
it's probably the most comprehensive research on the deluge that I've ever read. But yeah, it talks a lot about this, how it wasn't the Anunnaki gods or Yahweh Enlil who caused the flood.
No,
Uh, Even he says that in his research, he says, no, there was something going on where there was other celestial bodies, asteroids coming in, different planets that were disrupting the gravitational, just the Earth's gravity, but also asteroids were crossing near Earth. Some of them were hitting the water and flooding certain regions. Other ones were just flying right by it and burning regions. And he goes into the research of all the different flood myths from all the different cultures all around the world. And certain cultures were given different instructions by the Anunnaki on how to survive this catastrophe. So the ones that were near the coastline, they were told to either build boats or run up into the mountains. The ones that were where the asteroids were flying by and going to incinerate everything, they were told to build caves underground and cover them with mud. So that makes me believe that the Anunnaki, this would basically be not Enlil, but Enki and his bloodline, they were very advanced in astronomy. So they knew they could predict the movements of the celestial bodies and see things coming. So they knew what parts of the earth world were going to get flooded, which ones were going to get burned out, and gave specific instructions to the human Homo sapiens depending on where they were located geographically.
and I also believe that there is a I don't know how I came across this. I was catching on something and I went to this website. I think it's from NASA, of the catastrophic events that have been recorded in time. And I found this guy who recorded a meteor or something like 90,000, I think it was 90,000 years ago or something. Um, and that's there. So if I could find that site again, I should have saved it and bookmarked it. I might have somewhere. Um, but yeah, it is fascinating that, all this time we think so small minded of, oh, the flood happened all across over the whole earth. I don't think that actually happened.
Nope.
And what did, like, I know North America was not always where it was, because the beginning of the Anunnaki, they created 7 males and 7 females. And I'm like, why 7 males and 7 females? That's interesting, because the continents, there's 7 continents. And I
Mhm.
honestly feel that at one point they were all somewhat clustered together. So it was easy for them to travel to other parts. And then when these, earthquakes and all this stuff was happening and the deluge, it sort of separated and they began to position themselves in other parts on the planet Earth. Would you agree with that kind of?
Yes. If you study some of the recent archaeological discoveries of ancient pyramids and ancient cities that are submerged underwater in the ocean, you, this is basically confirmation that at some point the sea levels were anywhere from like 100 to multiple hundreds of feet different. And there's there's pyramid structures in ancient cities built with the same architecture of the Giza pyramids in Egypt. They're finding them all over the ocean floor, hundreds of feet below where the sea level is currently as of today. So that's more verification that, those cities were probably before this series of catastrophes and meteor strikes that caused all this flooding and burning up of some of the earth world. The whole entire geography was unrecognizable back then compared to what it is now. So it changed everything and almost like reset almost all of civilization on the earth world.
And I think that's beginning to happen now because we're stepping into the Aquarius, and Inky comes from that Aquarius kind of sign. And then, what was going on before the deluge? I'm like, with everything that I'm starting to see now, what's going on in the world on this planet, I'm like, oh my God, is Earth about to do this again? Like the reset, and we're going to actually bear witness to it now because it happened. History repeats itself and this is Earth reacting to our energy. It's like she's getting pissed off and she's like, you know what? I'm done with you. You guys, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. She's setting her standards and she's just going to do whatever to take care of herself because we're not doing it. We're not helping. We're not contributing to it. So I feel like that's part of what's happening now. What would you say to that?
Well, my theory is that if there was another potential catastrophe like that due to a meteor strike or something, I believe that the technology exists to deflect meteorites. I believe the technology has always existed. It's always been there. I believe that there's very highly advanced people in the universe that could easily save a planet from getting, hit by a catastrophe like that. But I also think there might be some kind of agenda or some very highly advanced people just kind of watching and waiting and seeing what happens. And again, this is just theoretical, but
Mhm.
I've also heard some rumors from some very, very wealthy people that have access to other very, very wealthy people, saying that, uh, like, for example, if humanity wakes up and we overthrow this evil corporate construct in these evil governments that have enslaved everyone, if we overthrow them and wake up and start living in unity, then there's a potential that we will not experience another catastrophe like that. But you know what? If everyone gets enslaved by a central bank digital currency and a social credit system and everyone's warring and they're just killing everyone off, then maybe, there's some advanced people up there that are just saying, you know what? Okay, this earth world is not getting any better. They're going downhill. We're just going to allow this next catastrophe to wipe them out, reset. Let's see if we'll let them start over, see if they get it right this time.
Yeah.
That's just a theory. But
I'm like on the same page and I'm just like, and my thing is with these, I know it's a mindset and that's their reality that they're creating because we all create our own reality. But when you got, the rich, wealthy, and, you know, them that's all they think about. And then they, it's like they become addicted to that power, that greed, and it's like nothing satisfies them more than that. And I'm like, why be that way?
it's like chasing a high.
Yeah, tracing the dragon. That's what I've heard in the past.
Yeah.
Like chasing a dragon, and it's like, what? To me, it's like, I guess because I don't think that way. It's like, if I was rich, I would want to be able to give back, make sure people have a roof over their head. They're able to get food. They're able to just live. And I think corporations is these, especially these rich elite people, they don't realize what their ancestors went through to help them set up for success and whatnot. They just totally they forgot about empathy, compassion, and they just got hungry for all that. But if they would realize and wake up, hold up a second. the most valuable asset that I do have is employees. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at today, kind of thing. Would that be like, that's just how I feel, and, like, why don't you guys wake up to this? Like, you're gonna still be rich. You can't even imagine how richer you would be if you just change the way and make sure, because it's like the law of attraction, part of the universe. What you give out, you get back. And there's like a karma thing. And I'm just seeing karma ripping some people a new, you know what, hole, because it's finally catching up.
Well, I have a theory about that. Two theories, actually. One of them is that these, evil people that have enslaved this world by control of the financial systems and control of the education, control of Hollywood, the music industry, the medical industry, everything, they believe that as long as they tell you what they're going to do first, they are relieved from any karmic retribution. And they have very specific ways of telling everyone what they're going to do before they do it. They put it in the cover of the Economist magazine. They put it in films. They put it on The Simpsons on television. Some of them, they'll even blatantly, like the World Economic Forum cronies, they'll just go up and straight up tell you. They'll go up there and tell you on television, you will own nothing and be happy. So they're telling you what they're going to do before they do it. Balenciaga told everyone that they're into pedophilia in their advertising campaigns. So it's like, oh, well, we told you what we're going to do, and if you just allow it to happen, well, it's no longer on us because we're out in the open with it. We told you. That's a superstitious belief that they have. Now, my other theory is that some of these people are not actually human like us. They do not have the same DNA we have. Some of them may not have the same kind of brain chemistry we have, and they might not feel things like empathy because that part of the brain is not active based on their genetic programming and their DNA coding. In the teachings of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, he talks about how there's shapeshifters that have infiltrated the governments, and they're masquerading around as humans, but they're really evil people that are doing evil things behind the curtain under the guise of, oh, we're the government and the president and we're here to protect you and it's for your safety. But it talks about this, like, again, like, this is ancient writings that warn about this stuff. So it's been going on for a long time. I believe that there's all kinds of different types of humans, and the DNA coding is different for different ones. Genetic experimentation and crossbreeding and hybridizing, and that's been going on for a long time. And there's all kinds of different types of humans. Just like you look around, look at all the different types of species of dogs there are with all kinds of different characteristics and features. Same thing with humans. DNA can be programmed, DNA can be manipulated, and if you got the money and the technology, you can create your own species and seed worlds with it. You can genetically engineer plants. You can genetically engineer animals. You can, DNA, genetic material, is of very high value to an advanced race because you can trade that with other advanced races that own and control their own planets and their own worlds. And then they start genetically engineering new hybrids. And then they trade technology, they trade DNA. That's just, you got to think of it from the perspective of a god. Okay. Gods create life through genetic engineering. That's what the gods do. And this is what everyone needs to realize, is that when I say humans are being farmed, we're being farmed by very advanced people for our DNA, our genetic material, sperm, eggs, white blood cells, adrenochrome, organ harvesting. Having humans as a livestock is very, very profitable. You can monetize a human over and over and over and over and over again, especially when you get into human trafficking. It's more profitable than the drug trade. The drugs get consumed once, it's gone. The human can be monetized over and over and over and over. And that's what's been happening on this earth world.
Well, yeah, from going back to history, even I read the Anunnaki Code of Law, and I was like, who was reigning before him? Because he had close to 300. But then there was another one that had maybe 13 laws. And then from him to Ambarambi, it like expanded so much. I'm like, well, how do they know about physicians? How do they know about somebody had to tell him this stuff because there's no way. And he categorized them in three categories: the property owner, landowner, then there
Mhm.
was the employee, and there were slaves. And I'm thinking, wow, we got the rich, the middle class, and then the poor. So it's all pretty much the same. And then when you mention about blood types, um, and this like I've been studying from the Anunnaki, and then I read about the gene manipulation, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, hold up a second, you guys. You guys been doing several attempts. Now there's one because I shared this with somebody, and they said, like, really? I didn't even know that. And I was like, they made several attempts between the gene manipulation. They were using whatever female species first with the male Anunnaki's DNA. And there were some that came out hairy. And I was like,
Mhm.
so that's how Bigfoot was created. And then, some were like had deformities. Some couldn't hear, some couldn't speak, some couldn't see.
Yep.
And I was like, and that was dealing with the female civilization. But then they did I don't know. I'm trying to remember, like, well, then you switch to a Anunnaki female. So you had to get their DNA and then IVF with the Anunnaki female, and then boom, they
Yep.
got Adamu. But here's something I find fascinating. That worked. Then they created the other six males. And then Inky's wife created the first female, which in the Bible is considered Eve. And then later on, Inky went and created Adape, who was wiser and smarter than even Adamu, because he was sailing and he saw the south wind or something, and he spoke to it to change or something, and it got a hold of Anu the king. So I was like, so what happened to Adamu? And apparently Adape even went to the spaceship in front of the Anu, and Inky's like, don't eat their food, don't eat their drink anything and whatnot. And he passed or something with Anu. It's like, why won't you eat our food? Why don't you? Because I was told from Inky not to. So he brought him back, and then that's how that next civilization or next breed. But I was like, you're changing these DNA stuff, the gene manipulation. But then what about the gene mutation that happens when you do that? Because now we have 12 different blood types. And then, like, don't they even realize, or did they? I mean, they're so highly involved and smart in doing this kind of thing, but did they even think, like, okay, what's going to happen with, you know, the mutation part, the defects, the side effects, the disorder, the deficiency? Because I'm experienced this is close to home because of my own daughter, who we didn't find out until after she got pregnant. We found a blood disorder and a blood deficiency, and she's had this all along, being misdiagnosed because no one bothered to do a gene screening. And it's like, you
Crazy
have
world.
evolved beings, why don't you pick up on this? And that could be a lot of our problems today. I'm like seeing in the future, like before I even go on a date with somebody, it's like, hey, by the way, what is your blood type? Because I want to know if we're compatible.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And in Mauro Baglino's book, he goes very deep into exactly what you're talking about. But there's been ongoing genetic engineering. It wasn't just like, okay, we genetically engineered Adam and Eve and then that was it. No, there was multiple attempts. There was all kinds of screw ups, and then there was multiple upgrades because in some of these translations, again, Mauro Baglino goes deep into this, and a lot of the other researchers do also. But when they first genetically engineered the human Homo sapiens, according to my research, they didn't have reproductive organs. So giving them reproductive organs, that was a second genetic upgrade. And then the third genetic upgrade was the one that really pissed off Enlil. And this, I think, was symbolic for the forbidden fruit. But they when Enki did the genetic experiments, he gave them the brain power and the consciousness that was able to evolve. And he gave us the ability to evolve our DNA and evolve our brain and evolve our consciousness. In other words, Enlil was pissed that Enki and his crew made us a little too smart. And then Enlil knew, it's like, hey, like, we're not going to be able to enslave these humans. They're too smart. So that's when all the eugenic stuff started happening, chemtrails, culling the population, depopulation, forbidding the humans to read and learn. They've had Enlil and this his bloodline and the ones that were trying to enslave us, they have had to go above and beyond to suppress us, because we have the ability to be like gods. But this is why these controllers have to do so much work to keep us suppressed. This is why they have to put fluoride in the water, poison your food with GMOs, spray chemtrails in the air, keep you living in fear all the time, inject you with lethal injections called vaccines, get you addicted to big pharmaceutical pills to suppress your consciousness. It's why they have to do so much to suppress you, because without all the suppression, we will become like gods. We will reverse engineer and regain access to all the technology that would allow us to reprogram our DNA and live forever in our bodies. And then we can exit our body, as we see fit, not die at 120 years, which was another intentional genetic manipulation that happened during the Tower of Babel story. But we'll recover everything, the free energy technology, being able to travel anywhere in the universe. All this technology has been around for a very long time. The gods of the Bible, the royal gods, the Greek gods, the Atlantean gods, they had the really high up ones, they had all this technology, but they kept it away from the humans. And there's been an ongoing agenda to suppress technology from the humans, to keep humanity stuck at a certain level of technological advancement. And maybe, slowly but surely they'll drip feed us. They'll give us a little bit of upgrades. Oh, you got your iPhone. Well, here, next year, here's the iPhone 2. Next year, here's the iPhone 3. We're on like what, the 14, 15, 16 iPhone. Oh, we'll let you travel around in a gasoline powered automobile, maybe an electric powered, but they won't let you have the 0-point toroidal energy technology that will just allow your automobile to travel indefinitely without ever having to refuel. See, they keep us stuck at a certain level of technological advancement that's just enough for us to, get around and move around and do things within the little farm that humans are allowed to wander in. It's called a free range slave. But they also formulate it and structure it in a way where they can profit from us by charging you $4 a gallon at the gas pump. They want to profit and extort everything. So everything that you have that you rely on to just live, they're profiting from. And the technology that we can regain access to will completely collapse that power structure, especially the toroidal energy, also known as 0-point energy. When that gets released out and everyone can access it or gets brought to market, the fossil fuels, petroleum, gasoline, that gets thrown out the window. Solar panels, these big, clunky, expensive solar panels on your roof, that gets thrown out the window. Those wind energy things that kill all the birds, that gets thrown out the window. Trying to build these giant dams and suck the water through to spin a turbine, that gets thrown out the window. Burning coal, that gets thrown out the window. And those old archaic energy systems is how they control everyone, because in order to get energy from those systems, everyone has to be hooked up to the grid, paying money over and over again to reuse it. So again, these are the kind of technologies that we should have access to now, But unfortunately, we've been enslaved by this tyrannical government, and people can't wake up to see it. So we're still living in the system of enslavement. But
Wow.
again, my mission here is to wake people up to this stuff so that we can liberate the earth world.
Well, I thank you for what you're doing. And, before we end, if you have a few more minutes, there's one thing that I caught on to that maybe you have some answers and you can give some feedback for. Do you mind?
Not at all.
Um, I came across the Lost Book of Inky, and I keep going back and cross-referencing with it, but I keep going back to it because there was something that was key that I caught when I'm like, hold up a second. Because in the Lost Book of Inky, it's Inky in his own words. He had a scribe write these tablets, and then one with the scribe's own attestation of what he thought from his experience and put it in his own words as well. There was one point where I think Marduk was coming out of exile and whatnot, and I guess they were going to a Pisces season, and Marduk was supposed to reign. There was a big riff about that, and some wars going on. Then they voted on launching the 7 weapons of terror. And I know Inky's son, one of Inky's son and one of Enlil's sons went and launched them into 5 cities. That's where what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. That was what was going on. So that's one city, and I think it was Jordan too. But they didn't I don't think they mentioned, or I didn't find the other 3 cities. There was one with a mountain, but I was trying to find the historical like map kind of view of what it was like. I think in Sumar, it's now Iraq or Iran. They were called other cities if you go back in history. But with those 5 cities, that sort of destroyed all that civilization. And in some of those places, they're still have that radioactive, because they were not anticipating launching those 7 weapons of terror. And then something about the wind going from one side to the other, it like demolished. And I guess in the Anunnaki zone, they regretted what they did after that. They did not, like, we didn't know that was going to happen. And oh shit, what have we done? And the one thing that that Inky and Enlil, as I guess half brothers, they were like, they questioned what we have done. Would history repeat itself? And that kind of, I guess, their own realization. Do you recall like any studying of hearing that or seeing that in your studies?
Yes. So in some of the stuff I've read, it talks about how there was different Anunnaki gods that were assigned to different constellations as they moved through the procession of the equinoxes, and different ones were given different times to rule. And throughout all these different shuffling around of the different rulerships, I think even these Anunnaki, like, they're not perfect. They're having their own learning curve of figuring out how to do all this stuff. So even like when they were doing the genetic experiments, like when they did this back then, they probably weren't as good as they are now because they were learning how to do it. When they started messing with all this technology, like the nuclear bombs and stuff, like that's been around since the days of the Anunnaki. That might have been their first time experimenting with nuclear bomb technology. And there's lots of references to the Anunnaki blowing up cities with nuclear bombs, like you said, the Sodom and Gomorrah. See, in the English version of the King James Bible, they completely twisted that story and tried to make it seem like, oh, like God was angry at Sodom and Gomorrah because they were all evil people and it was sinners and it was homosexuals living there, so God destroyed it. The truth is that Sodom and Gomorrah, these cities, these were like advanced civilizations where the human Homo sapien genetic experiment were coming together and learning and reaching higher levels of consciousness. And Enlil didn't like it. He was like, no, I don't want these humans rising up. Like, let's blow them up. Sodom and Gomorrah. Same thing with the Tower of Babel story. Even in the Book of Mormon, because even the Mormon gods were the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki set up all the religions. In the Book of Mormon, 3rd Nephi chapter 8 is a story of the god of the Mormons, which is most likely either Marduk or Enlil, because the mannerism of language and the tyrannical dictatorship is exactly the same. So it's most likely Marduk or Enlil in the Book of Mormon. 3rd Nephi chapter 8 is a story of God blowing up an entire city with a nuclear bomb. And it talks about how the humans, Homo sapien slaves, they were upset because of the oppression from God. They were protesting, and God didn't like the noise, so he just blew them up. Like, it's straight up. It describes a nuclear holocaust to a T in 3rd Nephi chapter 8 in the Book of Mormon. So this stuff's been going on for a long, long time. Like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. Governments governments were installed by the Anunnaki gods. That's just their royal bloodlines, the divine right to rule. That's where we get kings, queens, princes, presidents, vice presidents,
Prime
governors.
ministers.
Yep, it's prime ministers. It's all royal bloodlines that date back to the Anunnaki, and they believe that they have the divine right to rule over you because their DNA has a higher percentage of the Anunnaki original progenitors than others, or that you were just on the other side of the genetic experiment, and your bloodline's different than theirs, and they don't like you. So that's where we get the eugenics programs from and things like that. But it all dates back to these bloodlines: the Anunnaki, the 12 tribes of Israel, the Adamites, the Adapa, the Nephilim bloodlines, all this stuff. It's a very, very complex genealogy that's duplicated and intermingled and crossbred over millennia. So it's very, very complex. But this is what's going on. This is why DNA is so, so important.
I agree with you. And, once we can, when you do your own gene factoring mutation testings, you'll find a lot that you can do to help your body become well. And it's, you discover things that I've noticed that in my own blood type, like what foods that my blood type resonates with and not resonate with. So, we can take our power back by switching to better quality foods from companies that are for our betterment, are, to help the planet, to help humanity. Wouldn't you agree that there are those that are out there that really have our best interests at heart?
Oh, absolutely. There's all kinds of alternative businesses where they're just started by everyday normal people like you and me, where they actually just want to see everyone thrive and prosper and live healthy and bring like good, honest, ethical products into the world. However, those businesses, those mom and pop shops, they are being systematically destroyed and consolidated through the central bankers and the governments. And the way that they've been doing this is a rinse and repeat Hegelian dialectic. And the Hegelian dialectic is problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, and I'll give you an example of this. 2020, the fake pandemic, COVID-19, which is fake, by the way. There's no such thing as COVID-19 virus. It's fake. It's all fake. It's just a fear-mongering thing that they put out there on the media. That's the problem that they create. The reaction that they want to get from people: fear. Oh my God, I'm going to get sick. What do we do? Inject yourself. Wear a stupid face diaper. Shut down your business. Stay home. It's for your safety. You know what happens when people shut down their business and stay home? Their businesses go out of business. They go bankrupt. They go into foreclosure. That's when the central bankers step in and the big corporations, and they foreclose. They consolidate the real estate. They consolidate the small businesses. They put them out of business and force everyone into a big box retailer like Walmart that they control. And then that's how they gain control and power, is by consolidation of wealth, confiscation of wealth, and making it so that all your resources that you depend on to survive, the only place you can get it from is them. And if you don't comply with their mandates, you will not be able to access the stuff you need to survive. And this is a rinse and repeat strategy that they've been doing for like thousands of years.
Wow. Well, Sean, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I enjoyed this conversation and I even learned more from you. Now, where can people go to like catch up in what you speak on the social media networks?
If you type in to the search bar on TikTok, just type in "out of the matrix," all one word. You should find a bunch of my videos. There, people are already creating like fake accounts of me and stuff. So make sure you find the one that's really me. The actual like handle is out of the matrix 31. But my username on there is just out of the matrix. But I've got how many? Let me see how many followers on it now. I think it's like 23,000 something. Just so you get the right one. Oh yeah, I'm at 23.9 thousand followers as of right now. So there's a bunch of people create fake accounts of me on Instagram, on Facebook and stuff. And they'll
Why
message
do
you
they do
and
that? That doesn't even make sense to me.
it just happens in the social media world now. But that's my TikTok. Probably the best place to find me is just on TikTok because that's where you get all the videos if you want to learn more about the Anunnaki and ancient history and what's really been happening on this earth world for the last 10,000 plus years.
I think more longer than that, but
Yeah. No, this goes back hundreds of thousands of years. Ancient Sumerian kings list. This goes back hundreds of thousands, like
oh yeah,
multiple hundreds of thousands. So
250,000 years,
at
approximately,
least,
give and take. When
at least.
we finally, like the human being, like their perfect human being race,
Hmm.
250,000 years.
Yep.
It's woo. Well, thank you again. It was such a pleasure having you on my show, and it's I wish you the best of success, and please do not stop teaching. You're doing amazing. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your support, and it was great getting to chat with you about ancient history.
Well, there you go. You never know who I'm going to get on this show and what I'm actually going to be talking about. So stay tuned to Wake Up with KC.